Hey guys, so today I'm going to be giving you our first math lesson on here. We are starting a whole new skill, and this one is a little bit tricky to do you guys through a video like this. However, we're going to try it. Okay, and actually it's going to be about telling time. So hopefully with the glare you'll be able to see this just fine. I'm just going to pop the battery out really quick so that I can use this. So this is our standard, MAFS for, math, Florida standards, third grade, and MD stands for measurement and data. So that's going to be your things like we've already been working in measurement and data, talking about distance using the rulers, and volume and mass, being able to measure. So remember, with volume we talked about liters, and mass we talked about grams and kilograms. So all of that goes under measurement and data, along with telling time, counting money, using graphs and charts and all of that great stuff. So that's the unit that we're in. So we're still in the measurement and data, but we're actually going to be focusing on time. And our skill we're talking about today is, there's more to the standard than this, but this is the skill we are going to focus on today. Being able to tell time, tell and write time to the nearest minute. In first grade, you learn to tell time to the nearest hour and half hour, and then in second grade, you learn to tell time to the nearest 5 minutes, I believe it was, or quarter hour, maybe both of those. And then third grade, we tell time to the nearest minute, and then when we move on beyond this, it's going to get tricky, because we're going to be talking about lapse time and being able to decide, like, if I start something at 11:25 and I go for 45 minutes, what time will I end? So we'll get a little bit more tricky with that and using number lines for time. But for today, we're just going to focus on being able to tell and write time to the nearest minute. So I do have my clock here for us to work with. I actually just bought this today, and this color matches my living room, so I'm excited because I'll get to use it for my house when I'm done. So something that I want to make sure you understand is, and I have my key points here so that we can see those as we move through this, and these might be really good to write down. So these are kind of notes that you might want to take, because these are going to be the really important concepts and the really important things that I'm going to be sharing with you that you're going to need to remember as you learn to tell time to the nearest minute. Some of you are already pretty good time tellers in the class, and I know we have a digital clock on the screen most of the time, and that's what a lot of you look at. However, we do have an analog clock, and you should be familiar with those words, because I know personally some of you, I taught those words 2 years ago in first grade. So this would be an analog clock because it has the moving hands, and it has the face with the numbers on it, where a digital clock is like this, which tells you how late I'm up right now. It's 12:13 in the morning. So that would be a digital clock, where this would be an analog clock. So we're going to be talking about telling time on an analog clock to the nearest minute. So my first key point that I have for you is to remember the hands. Hopefully you know these from, like I said, first grade and second grade, but one thing to keep in mind, you need to know the two main hands. This one does have a second hand as well, this really long, skinny red one. We don't worry with that in third grade. We worry with the two black hands that are on here. You have one that is a little bit shorter and one that is longer. So if I were to move these together, you can compare the distance pretty easily. One stops here where the other one goes much further. And here's the best way to keep them straight. The short hand is shorter than the long hand. The word minutes is longer than the word hours, and so the word hours is shorter, shorthand. The word minutes is longer, longhand. Okay, so that's just a little trick to help you keep those two separated. If that is a skill that you still struggle with, you can't remember which one is the hand that points to the minutes and which hand is the one you look at to tell the hours. Hour is shorter than the word minute. Hour goes to shorthand. Minute is longer word than the word hour. Minute goes with a longer hand. And another thing to keep in mind is the hour hand is going to stop right at the number. The minute hand is going to go all the way up to these markings, which are your minute markings. Those are going to be really important for telling time to the nearest minute, those little markings. And so your minute hand needs to go all the way and touch those little marks. So that's another way to kind of remember, is when you're trying to tell the minute, you need to know which little mark the minute hand is closest to. Okay, because we are talking about to the nearest minute. So sometimes the minute hand might be in between, but which one is it closest to? We've been talking a little bit about that with measurement, measuring to the nearest quarter inch or half inch. And so sometimes it didn't line up exactly with the mark. We just had to decide which one was a little bit closer to. So we'll be doing that same skill with the clock, trying to decide which minute mark is it closest to and what minute is that. So one thing to remember, each number, so the 12 numbers, try and get the glare off, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. Each number is 5 minutes. So what I mean by that is it takes 5 minutes for the minute hand, and I'm going to move the minute hand here, to go from the 12 to the 1. It takes 5 minutes when the battery's in there and it's running on its own. When Miss Gall turns it, it takes as fast as I want it to take. So that would represent 5 minutes. When the minute hand has moved from one number to the next number, 5 minutes. 5 minutes. 5 minutes. All the way around. Each number, 5 minutes, 5 more, 5 more, 5 more. So what's really handy with that is you can just take the number and multiply it by 5, and that tells you how many minutes past the hour it is. So for example, if our clock looks like this, let's see, let's pick a time. Okay, here we go. Let's say it is, boop, that time right there. So looking at just the minute hand, that's the long one, just the minute hand, it is pointing to the 7. So we're going to see how many minutes past the hour is it. Well, we can skip count going like this, 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35. Or if we've memorized our multiplication like we should have, we can just multiply 7 times 5. And 7 times 5 is 35. However, if that's still a skill that you're working on, you can skip count. So 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, and that's where my minute hand is pointing to. So the time, not even looking at the hour yet, the time in the minutes would be 35 minutes past the hour. Okay? The next thing to think about also with the minute hand is that each mark is 1 minute. So that means from this 7 to that mark right there is 1 minute. 1 more minute. 1 more minute. 1 more minute. And so each one is 1 minute. So if you really wanted to, and you started right here at this mark at the very top above the 12, and you counted 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, because you would count the big marks too, and you counted all the way around, and you got to this guy right here, because you started here, you got to this guy right here, this guy would be number 60. Okay, because there's 60 marks all the way around. Now what I would recommend is to not start on this one, because that one is the O clock. Remember, in the minutes, it's going to be your 0, 0 at the end of your time. We learned that in 1st and 2nd grade. So your O clock mark is this guy right here above the 12. That's where in the minutes it's going to say 0, 0. So I wouldn't start counting on that one, because remember, like a number line, we don't count the one we start on, we count the jumps. So then it would really be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 all the way around, and you would end up with 58, 59, 60, right? So each little mark, and counting the big ones, each little mark all the way around represents another minute, okay? So now we're going to look at the hour hand. So if this is our time, I'll just leave it right where it's at. The minute hand is closest to where the 8 is, right there. I'm wiggling it a little bit and trying to get it to rest in the right spot. Okay, that's close enough. All right, so the minute hand is pointing almost exactly to the 8, but it's closer to the 8 than it is to this line. Okay, closer to the 8 than it is this line. So when we try to tell the time right now, we're going to go with this mark by the 8. And so remember, each number is 5 minutes. So we could skip count by 5, 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, or we can multiply by 5. 8 times 5 equals 40. So we know whatever time it is, it's 40 minutes past the hour. So I'm just going to grab a piece of paper here. I hope it's nothing important. It's just a cookie recipe. By the way, delicious cookie recipe. So we know whatever time it is 40 minutes past the hour. So now we just have to look at the hour. So we have our minutes, we just don't have our hour. So looking at the clock again, keep in mind that the hour hand is going to move in this direction. That's why we call it clockwise. It's going to move in this direction. So once it got here, it passed the 2, so it's now in the 2 o'clock hour. It hasn't reached the 3 yet. Okay, it's hanging out, pointing out right in here somewhere. It has not reached the 3 yet. It is still in the 2 o'clock hour. So that's going to tell us that it is 40 minutes past 2 o'clock. So according to that clock, the time would be 2:40. Okay, so here is something I want you to work on. So kind of a this is something we would do in the classroom with a partner or by yourself or on a center. However, you're going to want to do it at home. So what you're going to do is you can use a paper plate if you have. I took a piece of paper and drew a circle on it and cut it out and made a clock face. So what you're going to do is you're going to make a circle. You could even just draw it. It doesn't have to be cut out, but it's just more fun this way. But you're going to make a circle and you want to turn it into a clock face. Now, you don't need to put every little minute on this for this activity, but you do want to put your numbers, okay? So here's a trick for putting the numbers on a clock face, okay? You don't have to use a clock. I just needed something hard to write on. So I have my Sharpie here. So what you want to do is you want to go ahead and put the 12 on the top, and I put a little marking there for the 12. So go ahead and put the 12 on the top, and then you're going to go straight down to the very bottom, and you're going to put a 6. So I'm going to come down here and put a 6. So I have the 12 on the top, the 6 on the bottom. Now on this side, and we can see it by looking at the clock that's right here, on this side it's going to be a 9, and on this side it's going to be a 3. So I'm going to go ahead and write those numbers in on the sides. And 3. Okay, so now you have what looks like this. So you have 12, 6, 3, and 9. And now it makes it pretty easy for you to get the rest of your numbers in there. So you're going to go like about here and do 1, and then about here and do 2, 4, 5, 7, 8, 10, and 11. And that's going to give you a pretty well spaced out clock face. So just really quick, I'm going to go ahead and write those in there. And it doesn't have to be perfect. For this activity, we are just talking about how to decide which hour the clock is showing. So just really quick, you're going to get all of your numbers on there. It doesn't have to be perfect. Mine's certainly not. I've got some where there's big spaces and some where there's small spaces, and that's okay. But just getting it on there. So what I would do now is put a little mark right in, as close to being in the middle as you can get it, just, you know, as close to the middle as possible. I would put a little dot there. And then you're going to kind of draw lines from that dot to each hour. So this is kind of like making a fraction circle. Try to get it as closely lined up as possible. Otherwise it's going to be a little bit hard to use. Almost done. I have one more to do. Okay, so it's not the neatest. It doesn't have to be the neatest, guys. We're not working for perfection. We're working for something that's functional and will help us. Okay, and you're going to kind of make it look like this. Your line going from the center to each of the markings. Okay, and then what you're going to do is kind of color those in. So I picked 3 colors. I picked green, orange, and pink, and I just alternated, you know, green, orange, pink, green, orange, pink, green, orange, pink, green, orange, pink. And this is what mine looks like. Okay? So you don't have to do all that right this second. If you've already gotten stuff out and started it, you're more than welcome to hit pause and get caught up and then come back to me. Or you can just set it down for right now and do it after the video. It doesn't matter. You're free to do whichever one. But this exercise is really going to help with finding the hour. So just keep in mind, if that hour hand is pointing really close to the 9, but it's still in this pink zone where the 8 starts, that's going to be the 8 o'clock hour. So anything from the 8 all the way up to the 9, but not touching the 9 line, is going to be the 8 o'clock hour. So this is what I'm talking about. Let me give you a quick example. Let's get close to the 9 here. All right, here we go. So let's say it's looks like this right here. Okay, let's say it looks like this right here. This is really close to pointing to the 9. It's pointing to about right here. However, it is not to the 9 yet. So remember, the hour hand moves this way. It has gone past the 8. So once it hits this mark right here, that's 8 o'clock. And then it's going to keep going. It has not gotten to the 9 yet. It is still in the 8 o'clock zone. So that's what these colors help you help represent. Is once that hour hand moves past the 8, it's now in this pink zone. This pink zone is the 8 o'clock zone. So that means whatever's in your hour, when the hour hand is in this zone, it's going to be an 8. So it goes into the 8 and it stays in 8. The minutes will change. The minutes will keep going up. But it's going to stay in 8 until it hits the 9. And then it's going to stay 9 until it hits the 10. So if that hour hand is pointing anywhere in this zone, it's going to be at 9 o'clock hour. Here's the tricky one, is in between the 12 and the 1. Because basically the rule of thumb is if you're stuck between 2 numbers, if the hour hand is in between 2 numbers, like for example, if it's in between the 3 and the 4, you're going to go to the lower number, which is the 3. However, if it's in between the 12 and the 1, and you say, oh, I go to the lower number, well, you can't do that on this one. This is the only spot you can't do that in, because it's going to be in the 12 o'clock zone here. 1 o'clock zone, 2 o'clock zone, 3 o'clock zone, and so on. Okay? So if that hour hand is stuck in between 2 numbers, unless you're talking about this zone right here between the 12 and the 1, you're going to go with the smaller number. If it's in between 2 numbers, you're going to go with the smaller number, unless it is in between the 12 and the 1, and then you're going to go with the 12. Okay? So I want you to do this, please. It's really going to help you. All you need is paper, a pen. You don't even need scissors. Remember I told you could just draw a circle. So a paper, piece of paper, get it from anywhere. Like I said, this that I did this part on is on the back of a recipe. So if you have some junk mail that your parents don't need and don't want, and there's a blank spot on the back, use that. And then, so you just use a pen, and then some markers, colored pencils, crayons, which you guys should have in your backpacks. You were given, or in your binder, you were given those to use at the beginning of the school year. But please do that to kind of help you. Okay, so one thing we haven't talked about yet, excuse me, guys, I'm telling you, my allergies are awful right now. We talked about going to the nearest number, but that's to the nearest 5 minutes. We haven't talked about these little marks very much yet, so we do need to talk about that. So let me just spin it, spin it, spin it, spin it, spin it. Okay, let's get it to this guy right here. That'll work. Perfect. Okay, so I like to look at the minute hand first. It doesn't matter too much. The minute hand is just easier because it's going to be pointing to a line or really close to a line. And so that part is usually a little bit easier. You don't have to like decide which 2 numbers is it in between and go with all of that. So I like to look at the minute hand first. It just helps me personally. It really doesn't matter though if you want to determine the hour first and then the minutes, or the minutes and then the hour. Okay, so this minute hand is in between the 7 and the 8. So what you could do is count from here, 1, 2, 3, 4, all the way until you get to this mark, which will take forever. Or you can skip count by your 5s and then go from there by 1s. So this is what I mean. So going from here, 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35. If I go to 40, I've skipped my minute hand, so I want to stop at 35. However, the minute hand is not pointing to the 7, so that is not 35 minutes. It's past that. So we're going to go from skip counting by 5s to counting by 1s. So we got to 35, and now we're going to count by 1s. 36, 37, 38. So this is showing in minutes, 38 minutes past the hour. So what we did, we skip counted by 5, 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, and then we switched to counting by 1s. 36, 37, 38. So the clock right now shows something in hours and 38 minutes. Okay, something in hours and 38 minutes. So now we're going to look at the hour hand. And the hour hand is in between the 5 and the 6. Okay, it's in between the 5 and the 6. Now remember, everything from here until you get to the 6 is still the 5 o'clock zone. Okay, so you can look at that wheel we just made. It would be in that zone. Remember, if it's in between 2 numbers, unless it's in between the 12 and the 1, you go to the smaller number, which would be the 5. So if we look at our paper we made, mine fell on the floor. It's pointing in between the 5 and the 6, and so that means it goes to the 5, because this is the 5 zone. All the way in between the 5 and the 6 is the 5 zone. Okay, so that means this clock shows the time of 5:38. Okay, all right. This video is now almost 25 minutes long, so I'm going to wrap it up there, and we will talk a little bit more about this in the next video tomorrow. But first, I do want to give you a check for understanding. So you will send me a message in Dojo answering this question. I'm going to put a time on the clock. I'm going to hold it up for you, and you're going to tell me what time it says. Okay? All right. Ooh, I gave you a hard one, but I like it. Okay. What time, and actually it kind of depends on what angle I hold it at. Let's do that so it points nicely to a mark. Let me see if I can get it out of there we go. Computer glare. What time,
here's a station you might like.
my Siri just went off. What time does this show? Send me a comment, let me know. Give me your answer, and I will let you know. So, what time does this clock show? Yeah, I'm going to pause this real quick, guys. Okay. Siri decided to sing to me. Not Siri, Alexa decided to sing to me. So anyway, check for understanding. What time is this show? I'm going to hold this here for about 10 more seconds. You can pause it if you need to. If you've already figured it out, awesome. Send me a comment. I'll let you know if you're right. And if you're not, I'll give you some hints and we'll go back and forth. Okay? So, send me comments. What time is this show? And actually, I'm about to stop this video and do a science lesson. So I will see you guys again in just a little while we talk about vertebrates and invertebrates. So have a good night, good day. It's like the middle of the night here. And I will talk to you guys later. Bye.